Breaking news at this hour, a U.S. official confirming to CNN that President Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn, spoke to the Russian ambassador about sanctions before Trump took office. This is potentially illegal because they weren't in office. You're not allowed to talk about U.S. policy. Flynn has denied that it happened, denied it point blank and multiple times. Elise Labott is out front. And Elise, what more are you learning?
Well, Aaron, you know, Mike Flynn spoke to the Russian ambassador, Kislyak, several times after the election, before President Trump took office, including the very day that President Obama slapped sanctions on Russia for its meddling in the 2016 election. Now, Flynn denied that all this time that he had talked about sanctions with the ambassador, and Vice President Mike Pence even went on television defending him, saying no sanctions were discussed. Now Mike Flynn is backing away from that pledge. The White House obviously very troubled, and a senior U.S. official telling our Evan Perez tonight, our CNN Justice correspondent, that indeed that Mike Flynn did speak about Russia sanctions with the ambassador. Obviously, the U.S. has been monitoring Russian diplomats' calls. That's routine eavesdropping, but also part of this wider investigation about Russia's activities in the election. So those claims by Mike Flynn obviously falling flat, and even he is backpedaling on them right now, saying he can't really recall. He doesn't remember, but he can't rule out that it came up.
All right. Thank you very much, Elise. Out front now, Independent Senator Bernie Sanders. And Senator, thanks so much for being with me tonight. I want to start straight with General Flynn. If General Flynn was lying those times when he said that sanctions did not come up, that he did speak to the Russian ambassador about sanctions before taking office, should the president fire him?
Well, this is a very troubling development, and it speaks to the broader issue of Russia's involvement in our elections. It speaks to the issue of President Trump being buddy-buddy with a thug and a murderer who is the head of Russia. And now we're learning that may have been discussions between Flynn and the Russians about sanctions before this administration took power. So this is very, very troubling, and I think the president is going to have to tell us what he's going to do about it.
So far he hasn't said much, Senator. I don't know if you've heard. Here's what he has said. You know, he was asked about this report about Flynn on his flight to Mar-a-Lago late today, right? He just landed about an hour or so ago, and here's how he responded.
I don't know about it. I haven't seen it. What report is that?
Washington Post is reporting that he talked to the ambassador to Russia before you were inaugurated about sanctions, maybe trying to...
I haven't seen that. I'll look at that.
He says he knows nothing about it, hasn't seen any of these reports. Is that a problem?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You don't buy it.
That was a joke.
I know it was a joke. I'm saying you don't buy what he said, obviously.
Aaron?
Yes. I'm sorry, Senator. I'm saying you obviously don't buy what he said. You believe that he has seen these reports. I mean, to your point.
Kevin, I'm not. Are we on?
It looks like we've lost connection with Senator Sanders, so let's just try to get that back up. Do we have him back? Okay, so what we're going to do is take a break. I don't want to waste our time. We only have the senator for a few minutes. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, continue our conversation with Senator Sanders. We are back. Senator Sanders is back with me, and I want to apologize to our viewers, obviously, for that technical issue. And Senator, you had just been joking about, CNN fake news, but obviously the reports about General Flynn...
Well, here is the point. Here is the point, Darren, that it's not a joke. And I can tell you that here in Vermont and all over this country, there is a real concern about what's happening in this country over the last month. When you have a president who attacks people in the media who make critical remarks of him, which is what their job is, as providing fake news. When you have a president who attacks a judge who rules against him as a so-called judge, indicting the entire judiciary, clearly we have a president who does not understand what our Constitution is about, what democracy is about, and I think there is a fear in this country of this nation under Trump moving into a more authoritarian mode. Second of all, what I hear in Vermont and around this country is people see this president as a total hypocrite, somebody who campaigned before the American people, saying, I'm a different type of Republican. I'm not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then he appoints people to those important positions whose whole life work has been about cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. He says, I'm going to take on Wall Street. And then he appoints the head of Goldman Sachs, one of the largest financial institutions in the country, as his right-hand guy, and surround himself with billionaires. It's the nation in this country. And what you are seeing is people beginning to stand up and fight back. You're seeing at Republican town meetings in Utah, elsewhere, hundreds and hundreds of people coming out. And I do want to tell you that on February 25th, 2 weeks from tomorrow, there will be rallies all over this country where Democrats, Republicans, independents are going to go out to Republican offices, congressional offices, and say, you know what? You're not going to throw 20 million people off of health insurance, and you're not going to do away with pre-existing conditions. So I think you're seeing the American people standing up to Trump and fighting back.
There's a lot of things I want to ask you about, but because you bring up those town halls, I want to ask you that now. There's been a lot of anger and protests at these Republican town halls, right? This is all about Obamacare, as you point out. You're talking about another day of action. You had one back in January that you were the leader of. Do you think these protests are going to have any impact, though, on Republicans who will, of course, control this, repeal and replace?
Do I think? I think it has already had a huge impact. You remember, it was just a month or two ago, Republicans said, we're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're going to throw millions off of health insurance. We're going to raise prescription drug costs for seniors. We're going to do away with pre-existing conditions. We're going to do all of that. Repeal, repeal, repeal. Guess what? You're not hearing that so much anymore. And I think when hundreds of thousands of people come out and actually confront Republicans and say, look, you don't like the Affordable Care Act? Fine, we know it has problems. What are your ideas to improve it? How are you going to drive down deductibles? How are you going to provide health insurance for the 28 million people who don't have it? Are you going to make sure that people who have pre-existing conditions still are going to be able to get insurance at a rate that they can afford? Are you going to throw young people off their parents' insurance? Are you going to raise prescription drug costs by $2,000 for senior citizens? Those are the questions Republicans are going to hear. And you know what? I don't think you're going to see them going forward with the repeal of the ACA.
So what do you think they're going to do? I mean, they're not going to let it stay as it is.
No, they're not. But I think they're going to have to address the fact that we need to make it better, not just throw it out. People are saying you're crazy. You just can't throw out something without replacing it with something that is good or better. But I think that is the message that the Republicans are getting, and they are hearing it very clearly.
It's interesting that you have all of this action around Obamacare right now and a lot of protests about that, but also a lot of questions about where the Democratic Party is going. Obviously, you're an independent, but this is an issue that is near and dear to Democrats' hearts. We are hearing now, sources just tonight telling us, and I don't think you've heard this, that during a meeting with senators at the White House, President Trump said that Elizabeth Warren is now the face of the Democratic Party, but that's not how he said it. The way he said it is, Pocahontas is now the face of your party. What's your reaction to that?
Well, again, I mean, it's, what can you say? I keep saying it's unbelievable. I mean, he's using incredibly insulting words. Elizabeth Warren, to my view, is one of the outstanding members of the United States Senate. I understand why Trump may not like her, because she has stood up to Wall Street and stood up to the billionaire class. So I think that, in fact, in my view, we need basic transformation of the Democratic Party to make it a party of working people, to make it a party that is very clear. We are going to stand up to Wall Street. We're going to stand up to the drug companies and the insurance companies. And we are going to bring about the kinds of changes that this country needs to protect the middle class and working families.
Why do you think, though, that he always attacks her, right? He's not attacking you. Why is he attacking her? Is it because she's a woman, or why? Why?
You know what, Aaron, I really, trying to understand the way this president functions is something that I can't quite figure out myself, and I'm not sure that many people can.
It does bring me, though, to a serious issue, though, of course, which is mental health, right? In recent days, several Democrats have questioned his mental health. Nancy Pelosi said he should get a mental health check. She suggested that. You yourself have used the word delusional to describe him. Look, I know how you feel about him, but do you think that this talk is disrespectful of the office of the president?
You know, that is a fair question. And if you know my personal record, you know I am maybe the most progressive member of the United States Congress. But that doesn't allow me, and I never have, just attack people because their views are different than mine. You got a lot of Republicans out there, conservative, they're decent, honest people. I disagree with them. I use the term delusional in Trump with regard to Trump when he said there were 3 to 5 million illegals who voted in the last election. Aaron, that is delusional. Nobody in the world believes that is the case. There is zero evidence to back it up. But he makes that statement. So I think the word delusional is correct. I have used the word pathological liar to describe Donald Trump. Those are very harsh terms. I don't feel good about it. I disagreed with George Bush all the time. Never called him a pathological liar because he was not, just a conservative president. But this guy lies all of the time. So we are in kind of a new era. And I know the media is figuring out how it could deal with it. Democrats are figuring out how we could deal with that. And by the way, you got some Republicans who are not all that enthusiastic about the way that this president is behaving. But bottom line here is I think the American people, working people, middle-class people, are understanding that this guy is not delivering what he promised. How can you go around saying you will not cut Social Security and then you appoint to be head of HHS a guy whose whole life's work has been about cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security? The hypocrisy is unbelievable.
Right. Although he hasn't done it yet, and he has, I mean, one could argue he's keeping absolutely all of his campaign promises, right, Senator, including the travel ban, which I want to get your new view on the breaking news tonight, because he's now saying he may issue a new executive order. He says this is about security. He doesn't have the time to fight through the courts, possibly, with the one that was, of course, the issue with the Ninth Circuit Court last night. We asked him tonight on the plane to Mar-a-Lago what would be in the new executive order, and here's exactly how he answered that question.
We're going to have very, very strong vetting. I call it extreme vetting, and we're going to have very strong security in our country. We are going to have people come into our country that want to be here for good reasons.
Is there an executive order on this issue, Senator, that you could get behind? Because we all know there are major security risks. There are people outside the United States who do want to come here to do Americans harm. Is there an executive order on this front that he could rework that you could support?
Look, Aaron, what the president just said is what everybody agrees with. Who wants to create a situation where people are going to come into this country to do us harm? There already is very, very strong vetting. If the president has an idea how you make that vetting even stronger and may keep us safer, that's fine. Who disagrees with that? But this is what I will tell you, and it's not just me. These are national security experts who say that Trump's words and his deeds are making us less safe, because he is feeding ammunition to the jihadists, to the people who hate America. And he's going out and all over the world. You know, the jihadists are telling young people, see that? They really do hate us. That's what we've been telling you all along. They are anti-Muslim. Stand up, fight Americans. So I think, and I think many national security experts would agree with me, that we are becoming less safe because of this anti-Muslim rhetoric and actions.
All right, Senator Sanders, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
And out front next.